Hi friends, Joseph here and welcome to Home of Sound. We started Home of Sound in this podcast series with one main intention: to help artists, promoters, record label owners, playlist curators and others in the music industry share their messages and vision of the world. And as a byproduct, we hope that these chats will make you get to know our guests as people, and that some of you will also get inspired by their stories, experiences, and work. Without further ado, enjoy today's guest. Manni Dee is a producer and DJ and is regularly featured on Perc Trax releases and shows. His music can be described as harsh and broken techno, and his sets are widely appreciated by artists and fans worldwide. Since his very first EP released back in 2011, Manni has been developing his own signature style that has brought him to perform in events all over the world. He landed on labels such as Candela Rising, Earwiggle, Osiris, South London Analog Material, Tresor, where he also released his first album in 2018, Leyla Records, and of course, Perc Trax, where he developed a very good connection with founder Perc himself. In this podcast, we take a look at Manni's inspiration and origins, and his experiences with gigs and internet trolls. Going back to his school days and first experiences with music, we chat about Keith, the sound engineer who has been among the first people to support young Manni and pivotal to his development. We touch on subjects such as appreciating more of what we have, finding a healthy life balance and not rushing to send out music for demos. And we discover one of Manni's tools to avoid being overwhelmed and to boost creativity: imposing limitations. Enjoy. Thank you for being on the show. It's a pleasure
Cool.
to have you.
Yeah, it's good to be here, man.
Nice. And we were just talking about COVID. Like, has that
Yeah.
affected your normal day life?
Day to day, it hasn't really affected much in terms of just I'm still making music every day. I mainly work from home. I do have a studio that I use sometimes, but even when I had access to it, I wasn't really using it that often just because I don't know. I was thinking about it the other day, actually, like, why am I so comfortable making music at home? And I think maybe that's because I started like that when I was 14, 15. I'd just come home from school and just put headphones on and just make music until like my mom would call me for the dinner. So I don't know. Yeah, I really like to be able to just get up and not have to go anywhere. I'm just there ready to work straight away.
I fully agree. I guess it's a preference. But in a way, like
Yeah.
having the studio or your computer set up in a room allows you to,
Mhm.
no excuses. Like, you wake up, that's the first thing you do if you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, day to day, it's not that different, but the weekends obviously are very, very different. the weekends, the weekends, I'm just not. Saturday, Sunday, I don't really work on music, and I just kind of take time out, try and do other things, play Monopoly, stuff like that.
Normal people things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is there any specific project that you're working on at the moment, or is purely just producing?
So I'm working towards a couple of projects. I've got two EPs coming out this year. I've got one coming out end of May. I can't announce the label, but um, it's one at the end of May and then one in like October time, around October time. So I'm just the one that's coming out in October. I've just been kind of mixing the tracks, just finalizing the mixes on that, and then working towards a bigger project next year. But it's been quite productive. I mean, the last since February onwards, I've been writing a lot of music.
Do you think it's because you have more time home, or
Um, Not really. I don't think so, because it was like start of February where I really just started writing more than usual, and I've just kind of haven't stopped since then. And I'm working on a couple of remixes at the moment as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
looking forward
And
to knowing more when you're gonna share the news?
yeah. I can tell you, but I can't announce it publicly. Yeah. But I'm also doing this thing with DSNT next. I don't know when this is going to go out, but it's on Friday the 24th, next Friday. So it's like a production tutorial. So I'm going to do a breakdown of one of my tracks that I put out. It's a track called Realness that I put out with DSNT as part of their rave tape series. So
Nice. Okay.
That's next Friday.
Yeah, is he gonna be live? So people are gonna be
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so we're going to do maybe like an hour of me going through the track and then do 30 minutes of questions. So it's going to be live and just going to break down the process of how I made that track and how I produce generally.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, looking forward to that today. I think I'm gonna write it down. So I think it's a perfect moment to do these things.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because it's kind of this period without having any gigs. It's almost like you're planning for your retirement a little bit. It's like you have to kind of, you have to think of other ways to be an artist without playing shows and think of other ways of engaging with people and, you know, doing stuff outside of making music that ensures that you still connect with your audience.
Yeah, for sure. And there is this social media part of it, and there is probably. I was chatting with a guy called Mike Monday, who is a producer that's very different genre from what we do normally. And he's a kind of a coach for music producers. He also coaches people who are like very very famous or renowned artists. And one thing that he said about after COVID was like the most dangerous number to have in life or in business is one. So if you only have one stream of income, then you see that like if something takes that away from you, you're basically fucked. And he was suggesting like you always need to think about it. Okay, what is the long-term game that I'm playing? Yes, I produce and I, let's say, perform, but eventually like I want to find other ways for me to support that. Or if that I want to switch that off, I have other stuff I can fall back on if I want to.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of anxiety comes in. I think a lot of musicians or artists talk about anxiety, and I think because it's such a precarious industry, you never really know what's going to happen. Trends are unpredictable. You know, it's kind of quite a competitive industry. So I think a lot of anxiety comes in through just solely relying on income, being a DJ, or, you know, because even, you know, you spend all your time producing and then you play gigs on the weekend, but then obviously if the gigs dry up, then you don't really make money from making music unless you're doing some engineering or sound design stuff. So it's important.
For teaching music,
yeah. Yeah.
Teaching is and I think maybe this is an opportunity for the music industry to also start thinking more about that. Like in general, I think for the world, like I think we will always we'll all start thinking more. What is my backup option? Like if my job is taken away from me, what can I do? Like how am I gonna use my skills to make some money and survive?
Yeah, I remember hearing a quote years ago saying that if there's something like if there's a plan B, then plan A, you won't focus all your time on plan A or something like that. You know, plan B takes away attention from just focusing solely on what you want to do. So I don't know. I don't really have much of a backup plan, but I guess I have different I do a little bit of sound design and a bit of like sound for adverts and sync work, publishing and that kind of thing. So I guess there's that.
Yeah. I guess the way we could go about it is also to have like plan A and plan A.2, like to have like a second. It's still part of plan A. Yeah. And one thing that I like to think about is also thinking that your skill is, I'm pretty sure, is super valuable to other producers. So let's say you do this workshop where you break down your track, you figure out that there are like 100 producers that attend the workshop, maybe even more. And then 10 of them might be interested in understanding more about that. And then you can trade your time and skills with them to basically do one-to-one. And I would say that I'm pretty sure someone will be interested.
Yeah. I think hopefully. And also I think it's interesting because, you know, in terms of maintaining a presence online on social media, that's kind of easy to do that. It's, you know, but when you actually want to share something or do something that has some real substance to it, it requires a bit more creative thought, and that's kind of an interesting challenge to try and overcome.
It is. Have you tried anything so far?
In terms of
finding something valuable that is outside of your just gigging or promoting your records?
I'm doing a bit of like engineering stuff. I'm doing the thing for DSNT, the production workshop, and you know, might do another one of those later in the year. I don't know. I guess I'm quite lucky to have had a lot of gigs and be able to kind of afford to take a bit of a break. But yeah, it's interesting to think about. I definitely want to. I need to focus a bit more time on like music publishing. My friend runs a library, music library, and he's always sending me briefs, and I'm like, yeah, I'll get on it, and then I'll just start writing a new EP instead or something. So I need to like devote some more time to that. That's a good opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And talking about like before we get into deep into your music, is there any book that you have read lately that was important, that left you something meaningful?
I was reading so much like a year or two ago. I was reading so much like non-fiction, so much politics, a lot of philosophy. I just burnt out with it a little bit, just with politics in general. Just I don't know. You read all these books and everyone's like, "This is the problem, and we don't know what to do about it." And it's like, okay, cool. You just kind of philosophized about the problem in a different way, and now there's no real solution, and you're just kind of more frustrated than you were when you started reading it. So I started to read more fiction stuff. I don't really. It's not really relevant to music. The last book I read, but it's An American Marriage. It's a really fucking great story about this black couple in America, and the guy goes to prison for committing a crime that he doesn't do, and it's about their relationship. It's really fucking good.
Wow. So that is a fiction, or is it based on a real story?
No, it's fiction. It was really popular. So my sister lent me the book, and I really loved it. But it was really. I remember being in an airport and seeing it on, W.H. Smith's bestseller. I was like, oh shit, it's actually really popular, which is good because it's a great story. Recommend it. Good lockdown reading.
Yeah, amazing. We'll put it in the show notes for sure.
Cool.
And what was it? What was it that like that really got your attention when you read it?
I think the way that it's written is really interesting because each chapter focuses on an event, but from the viewpoint of the individual. So a lot of the book is just the letters that they wrote to each other while the guy was in prison, and letters that his wife wrote back. So that's really cool. It's just really raw, really honest, and obviously they're dealing. It's a very intense and difficult situation to deal with, and it's about kind of the depth of the characters and the fact that you have this kind of conflict whether your life is on pause or whether you continue because your partner's in prison. And yeah, it's all the kind of like, I guess I mean, it is quite political as well, so it's not too far removed from what I was reading before.
Very interesting. And this perhaps can be like a segue to one question that I was thinking about, which is a lot of your tracks have interesting names that refer to politics or are thoughtful names. And I would say, let's say, more thoughtful than the average techno tracks that has like one or two words in the title. Like, is there any of the title that I think really speaks to you even years after putting it out?
Yeah, I didn't think London Isn't England would be such a memorable title. I'm pleased it was. I mean, I guess it was so on topic at that time, the referendum, and it's still true. It's always true.
2016, 2017, right?
Yeah, I think it was 2017. But there was a track on Perc Trax on a compilation that came out, I think that was 2018, called Gulabi Gang. And I think the only person that picked up on it was Rebecca, but Gulabi Gang, they're a group of feminists in India who wear pink saris, and they basically take the law into their own hands and they do what the police don't do, and they kind of they confront men who have raped women in the village, and sometimes they drag them out onto the streets and beat them with sticks. So I thought that was just fucking so gangster. I was like, that's sick. That's yeah. And there's a documentary about them somewhere. I can't find it anymore, but it was around a few years ago. It's really interesting.
That's super interesting. And so you I guess you read before making the track, you read about them, and somehow while you were making the track, you said, okay, this thing, like, I want to put the title in the track. How did you make the match?
So I have just notes in my phone of all track titles. I've got like, I don't know, at the moment, maybe like 60 titles that I'll probably only use a few, but anytime I think of something that might be interesting for a title, I'll write it down. So then when the track's finished, I'll listen to the track and I'll skim through the notes. And if there's anything that jumps out, I'll pick that. And there's no real logic behind it. I guess it's just kind of based on emotion.
Yeah. It's interesting because, I mean, it's almost like you're syncing the titles with the track.
Yeah. But obviously, you know, something like London Isn't England was really, it was relevant for the time. So if it's not based on something specific that's happening to me or around me, then I'll generally just check the notes and pick one. Yeah.
That's cool. And I think the other thing, let's say, byproduct of that is that I think people are or press are picking up on these titles, and they are.
Hmm.
My guess is that also like sometimes they make up a story, or maybe
Yeah.
Manny was thinking about this thing so much, or like.
Yeah, yeah. That happened a little bit with the S.L.A.M EP that came out last year. It was, I mean, there was a track on there called Hostile Environment, that's in relation to Theresa May. But apart from that, there wasn't really anything political to do that EP. But yeah, I think a couple of reviews were like, because the EP was called Everything Solid, and I think there was a review saying that it's easy to. It's obvious that how Manny feels about the current political situation, calling his EP Everything Solid. But it wasn't because of that. I think, yeah, you get kind of compartmentalized a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. But yes, I think it's interesting anyways, because in a way it still reflects your thinking about the world.
Yeah.
It's part of your art. You're creating something. And I'm
Yeah.
sure it will make people think, like someone will stop for a second and say, okay, what is this title? Like, where is this coming from?
Yeah, I mean, the titles are important to me. I spend a lot of time thinking about them.
Very interesting. Yeah, cool story. And thinking about your releases, like I've seen your first public release was in 2010 with it was more like break beats.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the release? Like,
I think I should have changed my name when I started making techno. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of, I do wish that I changed when the first techno EP was, well, the one that I count as the first one was Paradolia on Black Sun Records, 2013. But yeah, the stuff before that, I was just kind of still finding my feet a little bit. The one you're referring to came out when I was still at uni. I was in a band before I went to university, but I'm from Wolverhampton, and then when I went to university in Brighton, the band broke up. So I started making music. Like, I was getting into more electronic music around that time. And yeah, I just started playing around with that first EP was actually made for a university project, like a second assignment, first year at uni. His creative music production was the name of the course, but that was the second assignment. It was just to write an EP or to create a project. And a lot of people made albums and wrote EPs and stuff. So.
very interesting. And then and then from there, like, so that was 2011, 2010, so almost like 10 years ago actually. And then you went into the techno. Your first EP in techno is 2013.
Yeah.
And you released on a bunch of labels, Osiris, Candela Rising, Leyla, Earwiggle. Which one do you think, like, among these ones, like, which one do you think it meant something or meant more than the others for you, like, meant something special for you?
Perc Trax. I know you didn't mention Perc Trax, but I think it was 2014, or I think it's 2014. I had a track on a compilation. It was Perc Trax versus Pole Group compilation. So it was me, Forward Strategy Group, representing Perc Trax, and then Oscar Malero and maybe Exium, I think, representing Pole Group. So it was the four of us, and I was just like, first of all, to be on Perc Trax, I'd only been making techno for like a year or two. And so to be on Perc Trax, first of all, was amazing. And then also to be on a compilation with Oscar Malero and Forward Strategy Group was pretty crazy. So that meant a lot to me.
That's amazing, yeah. And how did that come about?
So I'm glad you asked, actually, because I saw a video of Perc playing one of my tracks from the second EP I did on Black Sun Records, which came out, I think, 2013 or 14. So I saw a video on Twitter. I don't even have Twitter anymore, but I saw a video on Twitter of him playing a track from that EP. So then I think I messaged him on Twitter or something, and I just said, thanks for playing my track. I've got these unreleased bits, and he liked one of them and put them on the compilation.
Amazing. I mean, like, that's one of the best examples of like how to use social media.
Yeah, it was very direct. It all happened really quickly.
That's super cool. Like, very inspiring story. And I guess like from there, like you started working more with Ali Perc, more and more.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the guy that I think I send everything to him first, or unless, if I have tracks lying around, I'll send them to him. Yeah, he's great, man. He's probably, sometimes you work with labels and they're just kind of like, they just take what you give them, which is cool. Obviously, that's very flattering and I appreciate that. But then it's always really interesting when people give you constructive criticism and feedback and stuff. I think Sunil Sharp for Earwiggle and Ali for Perc Trax, they're the only ones that have actually, and Shafiq, who runs Leyla as well, they really engage with the music and kind of, they make suggestions. They have ideas about track orders and things like that, and really hands-on with artwork as well. Especially with Perc Trax, you have a lot of kind of back and forth with Ali, a lot of creative control, and he really allows artists to properly express themselves in every area. So it's great to work with.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I mean, yeah, I read in one of the other interviews that you made in the past years that, yeah, Perc has a photographer that basically takes the shots for for his artworks. Very interesting, because from your point of view as an artist, that probably makes you even like more happy to be there, because you feel like you're part of something, like you're creating something artistically important. It's not just about a track.
Yeah, exactly. And if you come to him with an idea for artwork, he's very, he's very receptive to your ideas.
Very cool. Yes. And so in terms of like sending your music out to labels, you have released on a bunch of labels. For an up and coming artist, what would be the best way for them to engage with label owners and send them their music? Is it demos, emails, or?
Yeah, so I think first of all, pick your best tracks. Obviously, like, I don't know, I always say like 4 or 5, between 4 and 6 tracks. You don't want to. So I know some people that send like 30 tracks and it works sometimes. It depends who you're sending it to, I guess. But I think for the most part, if you just send 5 or 6 really strong tracks, you don't want to overwhelm the person that you're sending music to. So just send a bunch, like just send your best tracks for between 4 and 6, and then also make it as easy as possible for that person to listen to your music. So I always just send a SoundCloud link with download enabled, because then, they can stream it immediately. And if they want to test it out on the weekend or whatever, then they can just download it from SoundCloud. I don't have to send them 2 separate links. So that's really important, and have some patience as well. I know some artists who are coming up and every track they finish, they send. And I'm just like, I don't know, man. Sometimes the quality isn't as good. You have to kind of live with your track for a little bit, even at least a week or something, and then decide whether you actually want to send it out, and actually will you still like it the day after or like the morning after, whatever. Have some patience, man, and just kind of, don't overwhelm the person you're sending music to.
Makes sense. Absolutely. Do you have someone in your inner circle that helps you understand which tracks are your best tracks, or you just do that yourself?
I just do it myself, really. I know a lot of people, that established artists who send music out to like a close group of trusted artists, but I've never really done that. I don't know why. Maybe I'm too insecure. I can't handle the feedback, but I normally just do it myself. I mean, I just trust my own judgment.
I guess, I mean, it's very personal.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily advise people to do it the way I do it, but
but for you it works.
Yeah.
For you it seems to be working fine.
Yeah.
Amazing. And so going back to your real origins, like with music, like you mentioned a couple of times that it was a Keith Spock.
Yeah. It's because he had big ears. Everyone used to call him Spock, like Spock from Star Trek. Yeah.
What was the story? So he was a sound engineer.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you asked about this, because he's such an important figure in my life. I started going to the studio when I was like 14, 15. It's like £5 an hour. I think I used to like save my dinner money that my mom used to give me, and save it and not eat at school, and then go to the studio with it. So me and another friend of mine were making hip hop back then, and we used to go to the studio and like split the cost and book it for like, I don't know, sometimes just 2 hours. And he worked there. So Keith worked there. So he worked at the studio. He was a singer, but he was also a youth worker, which is why he was so important. I didn't know that I knew him for a while, and I didn't know he was a youth worker. But then obviously, retrospectively, it all makes sense, because he was in his late 30s when I was like 14, 15. and he was really enthusiastic about my music, and he was the only person around me that was enthusiastic about my music, actually. And apart from, you know, friends at school, but he was the only person of that generation. Like, he couldn't really hide when he was excited about a track as well. He'd just start screaming and jumping around, just start singing. Sometimes he'd run into the vocal booth and just start singing on one of my tracks. I was like, fucking press record, man, press record. And he just, yeah, man, he's fucking great. His voice was amazing as well. So he was really, really, he really encouraged me. And I don't think I know it sounds fucking cliche, it sounds a bit Hollywood, but I don't know if I'd be making music if I didn't have him encouraging me, because, you know, he's someone that already knew so much about the industry, and everyone would come in and out of that studio who would make music in that area. And, you know, he had experience with knowing what worked and what didn't. So to have his belief in me was really helpful. And then we became really close friends. Like, I remember he came round to my place once and we just spoke for like 3 hours, just had a little drink. And he's recording some vocals for a track that I was doing with my friend who was living in London, and we recorded the vocals, and then I just started chatting to him about family stuff, and we were just there like 3 hours later still chatting. He was great, man.
And
He's a great guy.
It's amazing. Like, well, it seems like a movie story.
yeah, it does. I don't know, every now and again I try and get in touch with him. I think he's still working at the same studio, actually. I think the studio closed for a bit. It's called Sam Sharp's. I think it closed for a bit and now it's reopened a couple years ago, and I think he's still there part-time. But when I played House of God in Birmingham, I was asking Chris if he knew Spock, and he was like, yeah, everyone knows Spock. We all know Spock. He's still at the studio. I was like, oh, shit. So I need to go and try and see him, man. I need to try and see him. But apparently, like, I saw him because when I was at uni, I used to come back from Brighton to Wolverhampton every summer, or, you know, every now and again, Christmas or whatever. And I used to go and see him and just play him what I was making at the time. And yeah, I just remember thanking him for, you know, everything he'd done. And he was like, oh, fuck off, man. He's like, everyone says this to me. I don't know why everyone says. It was like the other day, someone invited me to their wedding, and I was like, I haven't seen this guy for like 10 years. So I think, yeah, he's real. Yeah, like, he was a pillar of the community, man. A lot of people, he helped a lot of people, but he's very, very humble.
It is amazing. Like, I can only imagine like the amazing positive impact that they had on your path.
Yeah, definitely, man.
Having that encouragement, and I think Sunny Sharp, we spoke with Sunny Sharp, I think a week ago, and he was saying like sometimes that comment of appreciation of someone, it's what makes or breaks the career of someone else.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a simple thing, but I think it's so valuable for other people when someone gives you like the encouragement, they kind of really push you to believe more in yourself, in your music, in your art.
Yeah, especially when it's older generation like that. There's another example of a similar thing happening from the older generation as well. Someone who's been around, you know, been engineering for years and years. Is one of my tutors at uni. He'd engineered for like Johnny Marr and Sex Pistols and all sorts. And when I was in this band, I gave him we made an album, and I gave him the album, and he really loved it. And he was so kind of enthusiastic about it and so supportive that he sent it to his friends at Sony, and there was another major label, I think at Universal or something. He was like, check these guys out. And I was like, oh shit, he's actually vouching for us, like, to big major labels. And that's pretty crazy, man. So that was like, wow, okay, I knew we were good, but now I know we're really good.
That is really cool. Yeah. If you could think of one thing that stayed with you from your experience with Keith, that you could pass on to any other producer listening now, what would that be?
I don't know. It's difficult because at that time I was just purely curious about music. I was just doing it because I was passionate about it. I wasn't thinking about, you know, longevity or how I can make a career out of it. I was just doing it because I was passionate about it. I don't know. There wasn't really any specific piece of advice. It was just him being supportive, and the way he would just go off in the studio and just start jumping around when I'd play a beat or something. I don't know. It's difficult to kind of relay any information that he gave me, because it was more just his presence and more his attitude and enthusiasm.
It seems to me, like also like is a kind of a mentor figure for you,
Yeah.
for young
Yeah,
Manni
yeah.
Dee.
Yeah, definitely. I think he, when I came back from uni and I was getting into more electronic stuff, I was really getting into like Flying Lotus and stuff like that. Um, he played me Prefuse 73. He was the first person that ever played me like that kind of weird glitched hip hop music. And he was like, you know, it doesn't have to just be a loop. It doesn't have to just be a 1 bar loop that keeps going around. He's like, listen to this, and plugged his iPod in and played me Prefuse 73. And I was like, what the fuck? That was insane, man. The first time I heard that, I was just like, what the fuck is this music, man? This is never heard anything like that before at that point when I was like, I don't know, 17 or something, 18. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah. 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 Yeah, that was tough, man. But I have to say that when I played Berghain, I was not ready at all. Like, I didn't really. I'd been making techno for, I think it was just under a year. I'd put 2 EPs out, the Black Sun Records EPs, and it was Andy Baumecker that contacted me on SoundCloud. And I was just like, "Are you free on February the blah, blah, blah?" And I was like, "Yeah, why?" um, I just wasn't ready, man. I didn't know what the fuck was. I didn't really know anything about techno at that point. I didn't really know anything about Berghain or I was living in Brighton, man, and the people in Brighton were like, "Oh yeah, you can play anything you want in Berlin, man. It's really free and liberal." And I was just like, "Oh, okay," because that's cool because I'm playing for 4 hours and I've only been making techno for a year, so I don't know how I'm going to play 4 hours of techno. I was just like, I can't even stand up for 4 hours, man. This is going to be rough. So I didn't know. I just played all sorts of weird shit. It was a fucking weird set. So I think some of the criticism was the best. Some of it was valid, but the best bit of criticism was that someone wrote, "Oh, you fucked up my friend's acid trip." It was weird. I don't even want to like say what I played, man. It was just, but yeah. How to deal with that is just shut the laptop, man. You can turn it off. Just close the laptop, go for a run. I don't know. Go and make a salad. I don't know. Just do something else, man. Because it, yeah. I remember chatting to Mike, who he's my agent now, but at the time he wasn't my agent, and because I was responding to the comments and I was being really harsh, and I was just like, you know. And then he messaged me saying, you know, if you write that, it's not going to get you another gig there. And then I was like, fuck, I deleted the comment. I knew I wasn't going to get another gig there anyway because of what I played. But yeah, I engaged with it for a little bit and it just kind of consumed me. It was all I could think about for a week or so. And then I just kind of tapered off. It was a weird time, that was. I think now things are a bit more free and open. I don't think you could do what I did back then because that was just fucking weird. But I think now it's not as kind of, you know, you've noticed it. The doors are a bit more kind of wide open now at the moment. You can kind of, I know there's a lot of contention between what you can and can't do. And yeah, but I don't think it's as controversial now. I think you just have to kind of just take a step back from it and just don't engage with it.
For sure, I think that the boundaries of what is allowed in techno, if that
Yeah.
is even a thing, like I think that they've expanded immensely in the last 3-4 years. But
Mm.
aside from that, I'm pretty sure that like there is still loads of like everybody can potentially get bad comments on anything you do. Like
Yeah.
whenever you expose yourself, you put something out there, especially if it's something that is not exactly conventional. Like you find people who disagree, people who don't disagree, who love it. You know,
Yeah.
it's so interesting because like like I've read somewhere, I think in a book, that we as humans, like we overweight negative comments or negative things by 7 times more than
Mm.
positive stuff. So if someone pays you a compliment and says, "Manny, that set was fucking amazing," you're like, "Yeah." When someone says, "Then Manny, that set sucked," you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh no, shit!" But like 7 times more than the yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's just human nature to kind of overstate the importance of a negative comment. Yeah, I think it happens to all of us.
Think about like have you ever thought about starting a label for yourself, like creating a platform for your music? And
Yeah, I've thought about that actually. I started thinking about that last year a little bit, and I'm fucking pleased I didn't do it because now everything's shut down. But I started thinking about it. I started writing down some ideas. It's something that it's been at the back of my mind for a long time. It's always something that I'm always kind of devote a bit of thought to. It's something that I definitely want to do at some point. I'm just kind of waiting for the right time. I have kind of ideas about what I'd want to do in terms of artists and kind of design, and because I've been a bit more hands-on with design artwork for my EPs recently, the ones that are coming up anyway. So just kind of delving in a bit more to that side of things. I kind of know what I want it to look like. I know what I want it to sound like, but I don't want to do it yet. Not yet, no. Yeah, I'm just going to wait until the time's right.
and you have also the live project that you presented last year, I think, in Tresor.
Yeah. So that was, I think, the album launch. That was the first time I'd played live in a long time. Yeah, the live stuff's cool, man. It's fun. It's very different to DJing, obviously. Yeah, it's kind of gives you an hour to test out new stuff, test out some new kick drums and a big sound system, and just kind of it's cool. It's it's a bit more obviously a bit more kind of improvisation involved. Get to jam out some new ideas, some old ideas, and sometimes I'll make stuff specifically for the live set, and other times it's a bit more spontaneous.
Mm-hmm. You did one, I think, with someone else in Reactor.
Yeah, with Eva. So at Unpolished we played. I think it's 2017. We closed the first night. That was great, man. So with Eva, it's completely spontaneous. Like I'm controlling the drums and she's controlling the synths, and we just kind of bounce off each other. We played at Unsound as well. I think the gig at Unsound was our best show. I think that was great, man. Really, really cool. We played after Sophie, and the crowd were chanting Sophie when we started, and we were just like, oh shit. But the crowd was so amazing, man. Really, really wild, really crazy. I think Unsound's special, man. Like you can go from Sophie, to me and Eva playing like fucking hard techno. It's really cool. The crowd are really receptive and open-minded. But I think I do prefer playing with someone live. Actually, I think you can just focus on specific elements a little bit more, and just put more spontaneous, a bit more kind of you're kind of bouncing ideas off the other person.
It's always very interesting playing live with someone else. And do you guys practice before the gigs?
Yeah, we used to live together, like me, Eva, and another friend. We all used to live in the same flat, so it was really easy to practice. We used to practice a little bit, like 3-4 times before a show. I think there was only one where we didn't really practice much. We maybe had one run through, but she's using a 303 when we play anyway. She uses a 303 and a SH01, and I'm using the TR8S, so I've got all my sounds in the TR8S on the SD card, and yeah, we're just kind of bouncing ideas off each other live. It's really cool, man. Especially those moments where you're completely in sync and you just kind of, she'll open up the filter and I'll bring in the kick drum at the same time. It's just like, yeah, yes.
That's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess like living together, like you also had a bit of since, and you were a bit of more connected already.
Yeah. It was really kind of just felt really natural. And I think what we do together is a bit more, it's quite different to what I do by myself, and same for her as well. So it's a cool project. I mean, we haven't played together for ages. She lives in Glasgow now, but maybe we will again at some point.
Why not? When gigs start again.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you also have ambient project, Nuances.
Yeah.
Do you have a plan for it? So my question is, of course, your main focus seems to be the Manni Dee as a techno project. So you produce, you release music, you perform. You also have a live set that sometimes you perform. And where does the ambient project fit in?
So the ambient project, it was the antithesis to the techno stuff. It was really free form and emotionally driven rather than dance floor driven. And I just felt like I wanted a project that was a complete contrast to the process of making techno and working within a framework. I just wanted kind of absolute freedom to make what I wanted, and it kind of slowly became a conceptual project. It was kind of about the inevitable ending of things, and just kind of like slow destruction. Like a lot of the tracks would kind of become more and more kind of crazy as they go on. But it was really cathartic, man. It was really, and I'm talking about it like it's, it's done, because it kind of is. I don't think I'm gonna pursue it anymore, because my plan was always to merge the two projects when my first album came out. So that's why, on the album I did for Tresor, which was my first album, there's a lot of ambient music on there. I think there's only one track that's 4/4, and a lot of the tracks don't have drums. So that was kind of the merging of the two. I felt like that project it's probably some of the work that I'm most proud of, actually. The last EP that came out, Murmurs of a Heavy Heart. I'm really pleased with that. A lot of people tell me that that's the thing that they enjoy the most. A few close friends have told me that that's the best thing I've ever made. I was like, okay. It was fun, man. It was really fun, but it was also driven from a very emotional place. It was informed by kind of what I was feeling at the time, and I'm just not really feeling that anymore. It was quite a dark project. But I really love making that kind of music, man. I really love making just kind of ambient music and just being completely free of structure and form, and not having to conform in any way, not having to kind of box yourself into making people dance, or that kind of thing.
Very interesting. Do you feel that there is while you make techno, do you feel a lot of that in a way, like boxing or rules, when you sit down and you start making tracks?
I don't really. I mean, there's obviously a structure to it. I really enjoy the challenge of trying to make something original within that structure. I mean, they both can be overwhelming in their own ways, because when you're staring at a blank page, a blank canvas, and you have no structure and no form to guide you, then it can be quite intense and quite overwhelming, because, especially with software now, you have so many options. So I think imposing limitations, whether that's imposed externally or internally, it can be quite useful, especially when it comes to creativity. It forces you to think in a certain way. If you want to be original, you have to be original within a certain framework, which is more of a challenge. So, it's rewarding when you manage to do it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I think the posing the limits is what makes your brain creative. Like you need to work with what you have instead of trying to. Otherwise, it's overwhelming almost. Like when you have all these things, endless possibilities is overwhelming.
Yeah.
So thinking about how you normally, let's say, pre-COVID crisis, what is the typical average Manni Dee day?
It's quite boring, actually. I just get up, have breakfast, and pretty much I check my emails, just respond to any emails, and I'll just make music. I'll just make music all day. I do have regular breaks. When I had my earplugs fitted, the custom made ones, the guy, it was really weird. The guy who fitted my earplugs, just a random guy in like West London or whatever, and he's like, "Oh, what kind of music do you make?" I was like, "I make techno," and he was like, "Oh, cool. I went to Catharsis the other week." I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Yeah, I saw A&D and Dasha Rush, saw Paula Temple." I was like, "What the fuck? That's crazy." It's really cool. But he was telling me that you should have a break every 15 minutes. Give your ears a rest every 15 minutes. And I was like, well, obviously it's impossible in a club when you're playing a set. But at home, I don't do it every 15 minutes, but I do have quite regular breaks. I think it's important to kind of, hear it with fresh ears, to look at it with new eyes. It's important to step away and kind of be able to step back into it with a fresh perspective. I think that's quite important, because sometimes you'll step away for a bit and then come back and you'll be like, fuck, is that really what I was listening to? Is that really what I made? That's fucking shit. Or like, the kick drum it's missing all, so many frequencies and stuff. So I think it's important to do that. But I'll just make music, and I'll just till like 6, 7 p.m. to do a bit of exercise. I try and do it every day, but when I was, pre-COVID, I was obviously gigging Friday, Saturday. So Monday, I'd always rest my ears, because I thought it was just I don't think there's enough emphasis on that, on resting your ears as an artist, because, man, what are you going to do if you lose your hearing? It's like something that I wear earplugs even when I just go to a gig. Yeah, yeah, definitely. So Monday, I'd always just take a break. I wouldn't do anything on Monday. No music, just read, play a bit of PS4, whatever, do some exercise, cook some good food. But yeah, I mean, try and make music every day. Sometimes, obviously, it becomes quite frustrating at times and you don't want to work. So you just kind of take a long break and then come back to it. But yeah, I mean, I'm just a bit one dimensional, really. I'm trying to find a new hobby.
Keep it simple. I mean, like, why
Yeah.
not? Is
Yeah.
that when you sit down to produce music, do you have a process that you tend to follow all the time?
Yeah, so yeah, I guess there is a process. I always start with the kick. I always start with the kick drum, but it does differ from track to track because sometimes I'll have a lead sound, or I'll have a sound that I know I definitely want to use, or a sound that I know can definitely become a track. And sometimes I'll just kind of leave it and I'll think about it for a couple of days and I'll form the track in my head. And I'll think, okay, this is what I want it to do. This is where I want it to go in terms of arrangement, in terms of its structure. And kind of construct the track from there, from my kind of imagination. That happens. That's cool when that happens. Like I've only learned recently how to actually make it sound how it sounds in my head, because that's really hard. But then a lot of the time I'll sit down, I'll start with the kick and I'll just kind of build from there and see what happens. But I like to have a few projects on the go at the same time. I think maybe it's kind of too overwhelming just to have the one thing. It's kind of like you were saying about income before, just having one thing to focus on. It's a little bit like, it's a bit overwhelming. It can be a bit anxiety inducing if you fuck this one up, then what are you gonna do? So you have a contingency plan. I have a few projects that I'm working on. So at the moment I've got 4, 1 remix and 2 original tracks that I'm working on at the moment, and I kind of like it that way.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, it keeps you also like inspired by different things.
Yeah, exactly.
Going toward the wrap up, I want to make sure that also we can leave some time also to think about your next projects if you have anything to point people attention to. If you could give one piece of advice or transfer one of your skills to a hypothetical, let's say, son or daughter, what would that be?
That's a tough question to answer. If it wasn't music related, or I guess it does apply to music as well. I was just trying to appreciate the small things. I guess this is COVID related as well. It's just, yeah, exactly. I'll tell them, I lived through COVID-19, man. I know what it's like. You have to just appreciate the small things. Try not to take things for granted. I mean, it's so easy to do that. I think just make time to think as well, man. You're just kind of just bombarded with things, images, video, everything just online, man. It's just kind of, even just thinking about it is fucking exhausting. And it just kind of, sometimes I feel like someone's kind of scrambled my brain because I've been online for too long and you just kind of like you have an Instagram hangover. You're kind of, my thoughts are the same as scrolling through Instagram. I'll just have it for a second and then forget about it. And then something else. It's just, yeah, it's crazy. I think it's so important to make time to just confront yourself and think about what you want to do, who you are. I mean, I think that's important, man. I mean, you don't have to just sit in a dark room and do that. You can just, you can be going for a walk, meditating. I think it's really important.
Yeah. Do you do daily practice such as walking or meditating?
No, I used to meditate when I was at uni. I always say I'm going to get back into it, but I haven't. My friend sent me, do you know Wim Hof? A guy called Wim Hof. Yeah, yes. I haven't tried it yet. I FaceTime with my friend a couple of days ago and he sent me the breathing technique thing that he's been doing. And he was like, it's great. It's so good. So I wanted to try that. Have you tried that?
I do that almost every day.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's basically the full practice is essentially it's like you do cold showers, then you do the breathing technique, which is I'll tell you in a second, and then the third one is I think you do a bit of push-ups and stretch. I tend to do that like at least 5 times a week. I always take cold showers in general because of Wim Hof, and then the breathing technique is, it's very interesting because it feels So it makes you breathe very deeply for like 30 times. The principle is that you breathe more air in, and then you don't push it out, but just let it go. And then after that, you almost like, what happens in your brain is that your brain secretes adrenaline. So you start going into almost like a primordial state. And you hold your breath for a minute, minute and a half, 2 minutes, and then eventually you just release it, and then you take the air in again. You do this thing for 3 times, and after that you feel like, if you do it correctly, you either feel like, oh, whoa, you feel like someone knocked your head, but in general you tend to feel like almost like electric. You feel like you have something in your blood that is like pumping much faster. Like you feel like much more energized. It's very interesting.
Yeah. So is that why you do press ups afterwards? Is that why you're supposed to kind of release that energy?
Kind of, yes. So the press ups is a way to, I think the principle is that then the blood, you make it circulate in your blood more. So you stretch, you do push ups in a way that actually your blood is circulating more, and is so the effect that you're having are spread to all of your body.
Wow. Okay. And do you find it kind of it influences the rest of your day?
It does. I mean, yeah, I think it does. What tends to happen is that I think if you get used to it, at some point you normalize it, so you don't see that there's any impact. But I would say the cold shower for me has definitely an impact on the rest of my day. And you can do it in a way that is almost some kind of meditation, where you actually take a super cold shower, and instead of letting your brain go into, oh fuck, I'm on a beach, this is not happening, you just stay there. And you experience the suffering, the pain of the skin. And I find that amazing, because that's really like, it's almost like you're giving yourself the power of choice again.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you think it's also to do with kind of achievement and the fact that you're overcoming something that's difficult physically?
It is. For me, it's similar to meditation. Like, it's this thing of like, you stop reacting to what happens to the outside world, and you're like, okay, whatever happened, I'm here, I'm fine, and I'm gonna decide what I want to do. I'm not reacting, I'm kind of acting. It, yeah, I think, yeah, definitely there's also like some adrenaline coming on in your body, so you feel like, wow, you feel like pumped up, you feel energized, and it's amazing for the rest of your day. Uh, Especially these days where, like, sometimes I just wake up and I feel shit. I feel like, that I'm locked into a room for months. Uh,
Yeah, I'm going to try it, man. I need to try it. It's just, I find it hard to remind myself to do these kinds of things, but I definitely need to try.
I'll send you the link of the video that I normally use. It's like a 10 minutes thing, super useful. And now you let me know how you find it. And one more question. So this is going to be like a random question. So what question would you like us to ask to our next guest, whoever they will be?
Did you wash your hands? There's an EP coming out at the end of May. It's going to be announced really soon, so that's all I can say. But I can't wait for it to come out, man. I'm really happy with the EP as a whole, the way it's presented, the tracks, obviously. So yeah, end of May that's going to come out, and then there's another EP in September, October time, I think, maybe November. We'll see, but it should be this year. And then a couple of remixes. There's a remix I'm going to do for Mickey Knox on Green Fetish, and then
Nice. Yeah, looking forward to hearing the final products.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool, man. And obviously the thing for DSNT as well on Friday, next Friday. But I don't know if it will have been. I don't know if this is gonna come out after that. So maybe.
Yeah, I think it's going to come out immediately after that. But
Okay, cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
anytime you have projects that you think we can help you, like also distribute or like spread.
Thanks, man. Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's sick what you guys are doing, man. It's really good. I finally got around to watching the one with Dan yesterday and at Fabric, the one you did. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, it's great. It's really great. I really like the one with Imogen. I need to listen to the Kilowatt one as well. When is that out?
Kilowatt came out this week, so today's Saturday, 2 days ago. And then we have Sunny Sharp very soon, and then we have a few other people coming up. We have Martinovna, who is a visual artist, who is doing the visuals for Raw for the festival actually. And then we have a bunch of other people that we are trying to interview.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's great. No, it's cool, man. Like, thank you for asking me because I feel, I don't know, this is what I want from the artists that I like. Like, selfies are cool, but I'd much prefer, something of substance, something like this. So it's really cool you're doing that.
Thank you. I thank you for participating. I think we have the same idea. Like it's much more meaningful for people to watch this, and I'm pretty sure like someone will pick up on some things that you said, and they will enjoy that. They will find it inspiring.
Cool. Well, yeah,
it's
that'll
cool.
be cool. I hope so.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Thank you
man.
for spending time with us, and looking forward to hearing more of your music.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you for having me. Take care.
Pleasure. Take care.
Thanks.
See you, man.
Cheers, man. Take care. Bye.